Welcome to Autogeek Show Car Garage here in sunny Stuart, Florida. My name is Mike Phillips, and today I have a very special guest. His name is Scott, but on our discussion forum he goes by Scrib13. Welcome, Scott.
Welcome. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, you know, I was up on the forum, I seen you made a post and it said you needed some help polishing. Can you tell us about your Corvette and what you're working on?
Sure. It's a 2010 crystal red metallic Corvette. It's got approximately 2,000 miles on it. Did my first polish job, spent the time going around getting everything good, and when I went to go finish up, I noticed a few scratches and they were driving me crazy. So posted on the forum that I needed some help, and you responded, and I appreciate that.
But here's what I saw. I saw someone that lived about 30 miles away. I thought, hey, why not invite them up and work on this together as a project?
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so normally what happens is a lot of people, they take the car, and this is obviously a brand new car. It shouldn't have any defects at all, but a lot of times you get these little isolated scratches a little bit deeper. So what most people do is they polish out the car, they remove all the shallow scratches because they buff out pretty easily, and all that's left behind are the deeper scratches. And on the forum, what we call these are RIDS. That stands for Random Isolated Deeper Scratches. That's the acronym. And so I think what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the process to remove these. Can you show me where you found these at?
Sure. The first one was right on the roof. That was the first one I noticed, and it's a pretty good size one there.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
my
right
first.
there. Yep.
And then when I saw that one, I decided to keep looking, and I found a few more. I found one back here on the trunk area, going across here, a nice long thin one there.
Yep, sit right there.
Yeah.
That looks pretty. Both these so far look pretty shallow, but they do stand out.
Yeah. And the last area was up here on the hood. Actually, I have a couple here, and we got one going across here, and we got one going across there.
Yep, there's two, like a little X pattern there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to tell you the truth, you're actually pretty fortunate because your car looks fantabulous. The only thing you've got going on is you got 3 isolated areas with a few smaller scratches. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a process for taking these out, and then we're going to machine wax, machine seal the paint.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, well, let's get busy.
Let's do it.
Hey Scott, before we get started, a good what we call a best practice is to remove any jewelry. I noticed you got a nice watch and a ring on. Just in case we don't get any more scratches in your paint, maybe take those off and we'll set them back here. Okay. Another good practice is anytime you're working in your car, of course, is put the cord over your shoulder. And I'll show you how I do that. Now, to get started, this is a brand new pad. It's dry, so I'm going to want to prime it by putting the product I'm going to use and smearing it all over the face here. So when I bring this down on the scratch, 100% of the face of the pad is going to work for me right from the very get-go. The other thing I just want to show you is the Porter Cable 7424 XP comes with a side handle you can put on either side. Personally, I don't really like to use the handle, so I'm going to go ahead before we get started. I'm going to take this off, and I'll show you why. Here's one of the reasons. A lot of times when someone's brand new and they're polishing, when they put this down on the paint, they have a tendency to push on the handle side harder, and that causes them to buff kind of crooked. And the goal when using this tool is to keep this pad flat to the surface at all time. So when you take the handle off, it enables you to put your hand right on the top of the unit and put pressure directly down on the head, and this helps you to keep your pad flat. But that's why. But you can, experiment a little bit and see if you like it with the handle or without the handle. But personally, I'm going to go ahead and take the handle off. Okay, can you hand me the finishing polish there? Okay. Okay, again, this is a dry pad, so I'm going to shake this up. Always want to shake your liquids before you use them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and put some of this right here onto the pad. Just like that. Let's take my finger. I'm going to spread this around until I cover the entire face of the pad with product. And again, what this does is it's going to enable the entire 100% of this surface area to go to work for me at the very beginning when I turn the polisher on. And it keeps you from bringing dry foam from spitting against a clear coat finish. And clear coats are scratch sensitive, so you always want to take that into account whenever you're using any kind of product to touch them. Okay, so we're ready to go. Let me grab a microfiber, wipe my finger off. Okay, so let's find the scratch. Here it is, it's right there. It's very small. It's actually about an inch and a half long. It's not very long. So I'm going to go ahead and never turn this on until you put the pad in contact with the paint, because you know what happens if you do, don't you?
Splatter everywhere.
Sort of splatter everywhere. And before I get started, I want to set my speed setting. Now usually for removing scratches, you want to be around the 5 or 6 setting. To start out though, I'm going to keep this kind of low and just spread my product out. Just like that. Now that I've got it spread out, I'm going to go ahead and turn this up. We'll start it at the 5. If we find we need more power, we can always bump it up to the 6.
How hard are you pushing it down?
That's a good question. A lot of times you'll see people talk about using light pressure, but actually what you need to do when you're trying to remove a scratch out of the clear coat is you need to engage the abrasives with the paint so they take little bites out of it, and that's how you take a scratch out. You kind of level the surface. So I'm actually going to put down about 10 to 15 pounds. I'm actually going to push pretty firm on this to start with, and then as I finish my passes, I'll bring my pressure up, and then we'll check out the defect, see if it's gone. Okay, then turn it off. Don't lift this off until that pad quits spinning or you'll throw splatter everywhere. Okay.
How long are we going to keep that on there?
Actually, that's a good question. When it comes to a polish or compound, you don't need to let it dry. So I got a microfiber down here. We're just going to come down here and just gently wipe this off. Okay, so no need to let it dry. Now, tell you what, why don't you get in there and check it out. Is it gone?
Looks great. Don't see it anywhere.
Let me see. 100% gone. Okay, so and this kind of drives the point home. You don't know what you can do until you try. Okay, so a lot of guys might start out with a real aggressive compound, and we know that clear coats on the Corvettes are fairly hard, but again, you don't know what you can do until you try. When I looked at that, I saw something that looked very shallow, and I thought a light polish might take that out. Plus, when you're using a spot repair pad, you have a lot more concentrated polishing action to a smaller area. That's going to give you better abrading effect to the paint there. So I think I made about 6 section passes on the 5 setting. The scratch is gone. Tell you what, I'll let you take out the other 2.
Let's do it.
Okay. Okay, Scott. We finished removing the scratch up there on the roof. What we want to do next is take the one out here on the hood. I'm going to let you do this, but before we start, one of the things I always teach people is to work clean. Now, anytime you're machine polishing, the product that you start out with, it becomes used up. I call that spent product. And also, as you're braiding the surface, you get a little bit of the clear coats coming off on the paint. So you want to clean this off before you put fresh product on and buff a new section. So to do that, I'm just going to take a clean terry cloth towel. Now watch this. I'm going to place the face of this right into the terry cloth towel. And back here, I got my hand on it, and I'm going to kind of scrunch it around the pad as I turn it on. And this will pull out any excess product and any of the residue that's on the face. That'll look like this. Let me turn this up.
You're going to do that for each spot?
Each spot, yeah. They always want to work clean, but see the residue that's come off? Our pad's clean and ready to go. Okay, now since the pad's already broken in, it's already been primed and it's wet with product there, we don't need to re-prime it, but what we do want to do is just add a few pea-sized drops. And then what I want you to do, let me shake this up, what I want you to do is put that back to a slow setting, like the 2, and then place that right, let's see, right here, that's where the scratch is at. Spread the product out just a little bit, turn the polisher off, bump the speed up to the 5 setting, and then go to town on it.
Let's do it.
Okay, turn your pad over. Okay. There you go. take a look at that. What do you think? Is it all gone?
Nah, we still got a little bit left here.
Okay, well, tell you what, at this point here, let's go ahead and try a little bit more aggressive product, a little more aggressive pad, work it out, then we'll repolish with that, because that one looks just a little bit deeper than the one I took out. So let's try using a little bit more aggressive product. So go ahead and pull that pad off, and I'll go get the polish. Let me get by here. There you go. Okay, put this on, just center it up as good as you can. Okay, this is the advanced swirl mover, so we're moving up to a cyan. This is a cutting pad. And we want to go ahead and, since this is clean and dry, we're going to go ahead and just prime this like we did with the first pad. It's kind of messy, but again, let's just make sure that 100% of your pad is going to work from you as soon as you turn that switch on. And also make sure that you're not bringing down dry foam pad spinning against your clear coat finish. Okay, so push that in. Okay, then I'm just going to add a couple pea-sized drops here. Okay, now I want you to do the same thing you did before. Turn down to slow speed setting. Make 5 to 6 section passes over that one area. Yeah, why don't you bump that up to about the 6. We need to keep that pad rotating. It's about 6 seconds. Good technique there, by the way. I saw the pads rotating the entire time. Okay.
I think it looks good.
Is the scratch gone?
Scratch is gone.
Okay, so then that just kind of taught us that, you know, we tried the least aggressive product and it got close. It didn't quite remove it, so we switched over to something more aggressive. And now what we want to do is switch back to the other pad, because now we want to restore maximum gloss and clarity. So we need to go back to our less aggressive product and our less aggressive pad. Okay, that's the advanced finishing polish. And anytime these stand still, it's just a good best practice, always shake your liquids up. Okay, now remember we cleaned that pad, so it's ready to go to work. There's 3 pea-sized drops. Spread it out first. Then again, make about 5 or 6 section passes. Very good. Check this out. See how that brought the gloss up?
Looks great.
Improved it, brought the shine. And then a lot of times in order to see a scratch like this, you got to kind of get the right light at the right angle and then kind of find a point of light to move back and forth. And that's how you can see if the surface imperfections, in this case a scratch, are actually removed. I actually measured right here at the tip of your headlight to this body line. It was right in this area. It's 100% gone. That's 2 down, 1 left to go. Tell you what, I'll knock out the last one.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay. Scott, help me find this one. I have pretty good eyes for this, but this was actually fairly shallow. I'm having a hard time finding it. Okay, I see it, yeah. See, car owner knows his car best. Yep, okay, so I'm going to come right off here and polish this one section right there. It's pretty shallow. Now, we just finished polishing that section up there, so again, we want to work clean. So before I start, I'm going to go ahead and clean my pad. Again, I'm just going to place this against a clean terry cloth towel, turn it on. Back here, I'm just grabbing that pad and pulling this towel into it. Just like that. You see how it pulled that excess product off? That spent product, and it's actually a little bit of clear coat paint on there. Okay, so we're using the advanced finishing polish. Just going to come in here and shake this up. And again, I'm going to put 3 little pea-sized drops. About the size of a BB, huh? Don't take a lot of product when your pad's already primed and broken in. And there's my scratch. I'm going to turn the speed down. I'm going to go ahead and pull this over my shoulder. And before you start, here's a little technique to kind of help you. One of the things you want to do is you want to make sure your pad is always rotating when you're trying to remove scratches out of the paint. So take a permanent marker like this Sharpie, just come down here and put a mark on the backing plate. And what this does is it's going to make it easy for your eyes to visually tell that the pad's rotating. And a lot of times if it's not rotating, what that means is you might be holding the pad kind of crooked and you got more pressure to just one side of the pad, and that'll actually stop it from rotating. So the black mark will help you to see that the pad's rotating. Okay, I'm going to turn my speed down. I'm on the 2. Spread my product out. I'm going to bump this up to try the 6 setting here. And one thing I want to point out, now notice how we've got a body contour here. It's at an angle, this is flat. Anytime you're buffing an angle, you need to also rotate the body, the tool, to hold the pad flat. I can't just hold it perpendicular to the surface here and then run into that edge. It'll actually stop the pad from rotating. So that's where you kind of have to get a feel for it when you want to take and rotate the body, and that'll keep the pad flat to the surface. Stop spinning before you lift it off. Here, go ahead and wipe that off. That wipes off nice and easy, doesn't it? You start detailing cars for a living, and one of the things you appreciate is a polish that wipes off easy. That way you don't get all worn out. What do you think? Is it gone?
Looks great.
Let me see. Yep, it's gone. Okay, and again, it just goes to show you, try the least aggressive product to get the job done. If the least aggressive product doesn't work, you can always get more aggressive. That way you preserve the original paint on your car. Okay, so tell you what, let's go ahead. What we need to do next is we need to set this, we need to pull off the 3.5-inch backing plate off here, put on a 5.5-inch, and we're going to bump up to the larger pads, and we're going to machine seal using a paint sealant, and then we'll wipe that off, then we'll machine wax it. So let's do that.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, Scott, so we removed all the isolated scratches, what we call the RIDS, random, isolated, deeper scratches. And something I want to point out, sometimes you're going to have some scratches that are deep enough that you can't completely remove them, but you can oftentimes improve them to the point where your eyes can't see them, or at least you can learn to live with them. And it's important to keep this in mind because all of the UV protection for the color coat is in the clear coat. So the more clear you take off, the less UV protection you have. So just the point is sometimes you want to learn to live with the deeper defects. Sure. I think we got lucky today.
Things worked out well.
Well, it's a brand new car. Okay, so let's take this off. and stick it back here. And this little wrench comes with the tool. Slide it in there. There we go. We'll throw on the 5-inch backing plate. Then we'll go ahead and put the Menzerna Power Lock on. Okay, snug this down. Make sure the washers are on that spindle before you put these on too. Okay, there we go. Now this is the Crimson 5.5-inch finishing pad. And just like we did before, we just want to take and eye this up and get it as close as we can. In the speed setting for applying a wax, you don't need the high speed because now we're not trying to take defects out of the paint. We're just trying to spread a coating out. So we want to bump this down to about the 4 setting. Some guys like 3, I like 4. I think the tool, the pad, actually glides across the surface a little bit easier. Okay, there's one for me. Why don't you hand me that one back there? Do you like the handle or no handle?
No handle.
No handle? Go ahead and take the handle off. And you'll notice I got 4 of these Crimson pads out here because we're going to apply that paste wax by machine also. Go ahead and eye that up. And this is what you wanted to use. You wanted to try out the Menzerna Power Lock, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this is a what we call a paint sealant, and you always want to read the instructions. And this one here says to let it dry to a haze before you wipe it off. So we're going to put a thin coat on, let it dry to a haze, then we'll go ahead and wipe it off. And when we go to wipe it off, I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to show you how to take it off by machine. So we're going to apply it by machine and take it off by machine.
Right.
Okay. Speed settings 4.
It is.
Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and prime this. It's not because we're cutting, but again, we've got this thing completely polished to a super high gloss. So we don't want to bring even soft foam down spinning against it. We want it lubricated, so we're going to use the paint sealant as the lubricant. So I'm going to put some on here for you. Go ahead and work that in. I'll put some on here for me. It's a lovely color green, isn't it? How's yours look?
Covered. Ready to go.
Okay, and again, now the entire face has been primed, so it's lubricated. So when we go to start putting the paint seal on, no portion of dry pad will be hitting your delicate clear coat finish. Before we go ahead and start, let's put a few more pea-sized drops on. And then I want to show you a technique I call kissing the finish. Okay? And this is what I call the lazy man's way of machine waxing. And the idea, though, is if we put this against the paint right now, all it's going to do is it's going to push that wax into the foam. So I'm just going to kind of touch this down in a few places, and then as I come up to it, I'll tilt the pad, bring the product underneath, and lay the pad back down flat, and it continues spreading it out. Now, anytime you're removing swirls and scratches, usually you want to work a small section at a time because you're trying to actually remove a little bit of the clear coat in order to level that surface out. Once you've got the defects removed and it's time to put the paint sealant on, all you're really trying to do is spread out a nice thin uniform coat. And so you don't have to work a small section, you can actually work about as far as you can reach. As long as you can see, you're still putting down a thin uniform layer of product. So, speed settings on 4, cords over shoulder. Now watch, I'm just going to take and I'm going to touch this down in a few places. Okay, now I've got it turned on. I'm going to turn this on. Start spreading this out, and as I come up to the product, I'm just going to leave one edge on the surface, tilt it, grab that product, lay my pad down flat, continue spreading it out. That's called kissing the finish. That looks good. Now here's a little tip. Anytime you're machine polishing, periodically stop, turn this over and inspect. Make sure that you haven't picked up any kind of particulate that might have been pulled in by the air current this creates and onto the face of the pad. And if you see it, pick it off or switch to a new pad.
Should we be taping anything off when we do this?
You know, one of the nice things about the Menzerna Power Lock is it's actually a very clear product. As long as you don't sit there and buff on anything, you won't have a problem with it. Same with the saw we're going to use. It won't stain trim white. So the idea is actually you can tape off if you want to, but what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on the task at hand and be careful and kind of slow down. So it looks good though. Okay, let's get some more product and keep moving around the car. Always faster with two people, huh?
Loving the help. Mike, what's the best way to get these hard to reach areas around the mirrors, the door handles?
One for you, one for me. Sometimes you got to do the hard to reach and the tight areas by hand. That's why at our detailing classes, we teach not only proper machine technique, but proper hand technique. Now to get these hard to reach areas, like right here between the mirror where I can't get my buffing pad, and look over here where your door handle grip is. Back in here, I couldn't get a machine in there, and down around the scoops. So again, shake this up really good. And apply some right to our foam pad. And then what I like to do is I like to take my finger, just like we primed it, I want to take and push this into the pad so I don't come down here in these tight areas and put a big glob of product. So I'm just going to push this in like this. Then I come down here and then just carefully get the paint sealant right in there on the paint to protect it also. And I'll come back here and get the door handle. Once you grab the other side, then we'll let this dry, then I'll show you how to take it off by machine. Well, we've been letting that dry. I've got mine set up. Now let's get your tool set up. Now what we're going to do is we switched over here to a clean tangerine polishing pad, and this is fairly dense, and that's what you're kind of looking for when you want to take wax off by machine. Now these are indigo reversible microfiber bonnets, okay? And you always want to use a clean dry pad when you take wax off by machine. If you use a wet pad, all it's going to do is get your bonnet wet, and then it's going to stop taking the dried paint sealant off. So you hold it, and I'll just kind of wrestle this on, just like that. Okay, feel how soft that is. Okay, now just before we go any further, have you ever machine plied a paint sealant before today?
No, sir.
So everything's by hand.
Everything's been by hand.
Machine's a lot better though, right?
Quicker,
nicer,
and
smoother. Quicker. Plus, you take all the pressure points out of the process by taking your fingers out of the process, and when you're applying a wax like we did with these crimson pads, you have 100% of the pad with equal pressure applying and putting the paint sealant down on the paint. So it's very gentle to the process. Now, in order to take a wax off or a paint sealant by machine, you want to use the high speed. So let's bump these up to the 6th setting. And you never want to turn this on until it's in contact with the paint, and don't ever lift this off until you've turned it off and this is slowed down, or this will go zinging off and then it'll be dirty, you won't be able to use it. Now, before we take a paint sealant off, what we want to do is called the swipe test. That's where you take your clean finger and you make a brisk swipe, and where you swipe it should be clear and glossy, just like that. See that? If where I swiped it, it would have been smeary looking, that's a visual indicator that the paint sealant isn't fully dry yet, so you want to give it some more time to dry. But right now that looks like it's swiped clear, it's ready to take off. And I'm going to just show you the technique and how dramatic the paint's going to look after we take and pull this off by machine. So, got this on the 6th setting. Grab some cord. And what I like about these Porter cables is they're so lightweight that you can actually easily hold this with one hand. Now watch this. Place it down, turn it on. How's that look?
Great. Are we using any pressure?
Yeah, you actually have to push down a little bit because you're trying to pull that wax off the paint and onto the pad. But the point is look how clear and glossy that is. And there was no arm movement involved in getting that wax off there. So when you go to take a wax off by machine, yes, you do need to push down, not like you're trying to take a defect out, but you do need to apply some pressure to convince the paint sealant to come off. So go ahead, you start over there, let's work our way around the car, then we'll get set up to put the Pinnacle Sovereign paste wax on by machine. tip. As you're working around the car, you're obviously going to be pulling the paint sealant off onto the microfiber, right? Now these are reversible, but here's something I do. I just take my fingernails and just keep pressure on the pad, turn it on, and kind of lift and separate those pads, do it over the side of the car so the excess paint sealant will just kind of fall off, like this. See that? Use your fingernails. Like that. Then, while I'm holding this in my hand, see there's pressure on it, put it back down on, keep going around the car. What'd you think of that?
Pretty cool.
Okay.
Looks great.
We'll tell you what, let's take our bonnets off. And these are washable, so you can use them over and over again. Okay. And now let's take our polishing pads off. Okay. And we're going to switch over to the crimson pad. And on the forum, what I read was you wanted to seal the paint with the Menzerna Power Lock. And then to get that deep wet shine, you wanted to go ahead and put a coat of carnauba wax down there. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, so we could apply this by hand, but in the spirit of using the machine, you know, taking our pressure points out of the process, we put on the soft crimson finishing pads. We put our speed back on the 4. And the next thing is I'll show you how to use a paste wax by machine. So the trick to applying a paste wax by machine is getting the wax out of the jar. So let me show you how to do that. Take the lid off. You probably notice I got some microfiber gloves over here. And that's to keep the wax clean, to keep the wax off my hands so when I go to grab the polisher it's not all slimy. Okay, then I'm just going to take and tap this, just like that. Okay, hold up your polisher. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can just take and hold this and then just drag this across, just like that. See how we've primed the pad with the paste wax. That one's ready to go. Now I'll do mine. And we want to do the same thing we did with the paint sealant. We just want to lay down. I'm going to put this, I'm going to actually set this right here in the lid so I can come back and grab this as we need more wax. But again, the key here is to lay down a thin, uniform coat. And usually after you apply the paint sealant, you want to let what we call a window of time go by from anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. But in today's scenario, we don't really have that time because you're going to drive your car back home. So we're going to go ahead and put the carnauba wax on right now. So the 4 setting, nice thin coat. Remember, don't turn this on until it's in contact with the paint. And then just spread it out, making overlapping passes. And you want to go over each square inch about 2 to 3 times, and that way you get really good coverage. Ready for some more wax? Pretty easy this way, huh?
Very easy.
Okay. Okay, we're done with the machines. Now, let me go ahead and put this wax back in its container, just that way it stays clean. And we can use it the next time we want to machine apply or hand apply Pinnacle Sovereign carnauba wax. One of the cool things about this is it won't dry white and it won't stain trim white. So even though you're supposed to be careful when you're applying wax by hand or machine not to get it on trim, if you do, it's not going to hurt nothing. Okay, so what we want to do next is we want to go ahead and take the wax off. Now, what's important at this point is we've machine polished, we've sealed it, we have a coat of wax on here. Now we want to bring up the level of our care and how, just how careful we are wiping so we don't put any scratches back in. So what I want to do is I want to have you put on a pair of microfiber gloves. And what this is nice for is it helps you to grip your microfiber. But if, and just this way, you know, since your hand's going to be protected, you don't have to worry about putting fingerprints onto the paint now. Because I tell you, when we pull the wax off here, I think you're going to be amazed. And you were asking me why we can't take this wax off like we did the last one by machine.
Right.
Yeah, the reason for that is the Menzerna Power Lock is a wax that dries. Okay, it's a paint sealant. When it dries and you take a microfiber up by machine and starts to come off, it powders off and it comes off pretty easily. Now this is a wax that doesn't need to dry, and we're going to take it off before it dries, so it's still wet. If we were to try to take that off by machine, what's going to happen is it would start to build up on the face of the bonnet, and it would actually be wet, and then that would be the same thing as putting it on, because now it would just be smearing it around. It doesn't really come off if it doesn't dry. So for waxes that don't dry, you need to take them off by hand. Now we have some microfibers over here. I want you to grab two, one for each hand. And I'm going to show you a technique to help you to take the wax off very gently and safely to the clear coat finish. I'm going to do it right in here. Take and always have your microfibers folded 4 ways. Before the show started, I inspected all these to make sure they're clean. Place it just like that, and having it folded 4 ways, what that does is it gives you 8 sizes to wipe with, and it gives you some cushion to spread out the pressure of your hand. Okay, now just real gently, I'm just going to put my hand on here. I'm just going to twist my hand back and forth, and if you look, I've created a shiny spot right there in the middle of your hood, huh? Okay, so the wax is off of there. And now what I want to do is just real gently, I'm going to start to creep out. I'm going to move out from the shiny spot, and I'm only going to take little bites, okay? Some guys, you see them, they're just like all over the place. And what happens is the wax has a pretty good grip to the paint, and your microfiber towel, if you try to take off too big of a bite at one time, the tension between the wax and the paint will overcome the ability of the microfiber to pull it off. So if you just take little bites, it comes off real easy. See that? All right. Okay. Go ahead and turn your microfiber towel over often, and then occasionally take and shake it, fold it to a clean, fresh side, and continue wiping. A lot of times I just use my other hand in this towel ready for backup, but also to kind of support myself when I'm leaning over things like the hood and the fender here.
Mike, what are you doing now? I thought we were done.
This is called the final wipe. And what this is after you've removed 99% of the wax, what you want to do is switch over to a clean, fresh, soft microfiber towel, folded 4 ways, place it down, and you just want to take and give it a final wipe, only now you want to slow your hand movement way down, really slow. And what you're trying to do is, in case there's any trace residue still on here, you want to wipe the microfiber over it nice and slow to give it a chance to transfer from here to here. Now, if you watch other guys wipe wax off, this is what you usually see. You see the wild man technique. They're just all over the place, moving their hand at light speed. And when they do that, there's no chance for the residues to transfer from here to your microfiber because you're moving it too fast. So you just want to slow down and give it that final wipe. Look at that gloss. How's that look?
The baby's beautiful.
Okay, so that's called the final wipe technique. And if you're moving your hand like a wild man, there's actually a chance you can put some scratches back in. So again, clear coats are scratch sensitive. You need to do everything you can to be gentle to them. So hey, let's check out the water beading. Check that out. That'll make this thing easy to dry, huh?
You betcha, it looks great.
It does look great. Okay. Let's pull that off. Okay. Well, there you go. We've taken and removed those isolated defects called RIDS, random isolated deeper scratches. And then we took and we machine applied a paint sealant. Then we used the machine to remove the paint sealant. Then we machine applied a high quality finishing wax, a carnauba wax, the Pinnacle Sovereign. Then we took that off by hand using our microfiber gloves, clean microfiber wiping cloths. And I think we're pretty much done.
Looks better than it came off the lot.
Does it look better than when you bought it new?
It looks beautiful, it's awesome.
Yeah, I don't see any defects in it at all. Now the trick for you is to drive it home and not get any bugs on it.
So that'll be fun.
Okay. If you're interested in anything that you've seen here today, visit Autogeek.net. If you have any questions, call our customer care hotline at 1-800-869-3011. And don't forget to swing by our fun and friendly discussion forum at AutogeekOnline.net. That's where you'll find me answering questions and posting new how-to articles. Now, we have this vet over here. Have you been wondering what it's for?
Looks good, but I was wondering why it's there.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now that you've seen how to remove an isolated defect, do you feel comfortable like you could do it on your own?
Sure, no problem.
Well, there's a couple on this cart. Let me show them to you, and then I'll turn you loose with the polisher to move them, and then I got to go to lunch.
Have a good time.
So I think there's one right here.
All right, we'll go to work.
Yeah, I think there's one over here, too.